I built the ultimate AI Data Analyst App using just Lovable and N8N. All you have to do is upload the CSV file with your company's data. Instantly, the app will start analyzing it, generate a list of meaningful insights, along with creating 3 visually engaging graphs, and send everything over to you via email, which means that you will never have to spend countless hours manually analyzing data and crafting weekly reports ever again. The best part, in this video I will show you how you can build it step by step, and at the end I will also give you access to the JSON file of the entire automation completely for free. So if that sounds interesting, let's get started. Alright, now the first thing that we have to do is to build the front-end interface of our app, which we're going to do by using an app like Lovable. And specifically, I will come over here in the text box and type, I want to build an AI Analyst App. The app is going to be very simple. It should have one section where I can upload a CSV file, and then it is going to go and analyze all the data that I have inside the file and send over an email. But then I tell Lovable that it shouldn't try to build any of the backend functions of the app because I'm going to build those with N8N. I just tell it to just focus on building a nice looking front-end UI. It needs to look modern, be dark, and have clean, sharp colors, just like this example. And what I will do now is I will go over to Google and search for nice looking UI. Simply find one that I like. Let's say I really like this one, for example, and then all I have to do is to simply come over here and download it, and then I can come back over to Lovable, click on attach file, upload that design, and then come over here and click on enter. This way Lovable has a visual example of exactly how we want the app to look like, making it way more likely to give us a good end result. But while Lovable is building the front-end interface of our app, let's go over to N8N and start building the backend. So I went over to N8N and created a brand new workflow, and now the first thing that we have to do is to add in a trigger to our automation. So to do that, we simply come over here, click on add first step, and then we have to come over here and search for a webhook node. And the reason we're using a webhook and not any other trigger is because a webhook will allow us to connect the front-end interface that we're building right now with Lovable to the backend automation that we're going to build in N8N. And the only change we need to make in these settings is over here in the HTTP method. We need to change it from GET over to POST, since that is the type of request we need to use in order for us to be able to send and receive data from Lovable. So now all we have to do is to simply come over here and click on top of this link in order for us to copy it in our clipboard. And then if we come back over in a Lovable interface, we can also see that it also finished creating the front-end interface of our app, which I do admit does look very good. But remember, we're not here for that. We're here to connect this front-end interface with a backend automation in N8N. So to do that, we need to come over here in the Ask Lovable box and simply type, send all the data over to this web URL along with a CSV file as a binary file. And now what I will do is I will simply paste in the web URL just copied, and I will come over here and click on enter. So now Lovable is going to go, it is going to take this web URL and embed it inside our app. Boom, Lovable just finished making the changes, and now it's time to actually go and test it out. Now for the purposes of this example, I have actually created this Google Sheet which supposed data about the sales that I have done in my company. As you can see, we have a bunch of data over here. So all we have to do is to simply come over here, download all this data into a CSV file. Then I will come over to Lovable and upload that CSV file. And now that I did that, I need to make sure my webhook is actually listening for a test event and is expecting to receive data from our Lovable interface. And then I can simply come over here and click on Analyze Data. And boom, as you can see, the CSV file was sent successfully for analysis. And if we come back in our N8N interface, we can see that we do in fact have the CSV file over here in the form of a binary file, exactly as we wanted. And we also have a bunch of other schemas over here. So now that we have successfully managed to connect our front-end interface in Lovable with a backend automation in N8N, it's time we actually go and we start building our actual automation. Now the first thing that we have to do is to come over here and add in extract from file node, and specifically we need to come over here and select extract from CSV, since that is the type of file that we have uploaded. So now all we have to do is to make sure the input binary field over here matches the name of our file. So let me actually come over here, copy this, and I will come over here and paste this in. And now if we execute the step, you can see that we have all the data from inside our CSV very nicely populated over here inside our N8N interface, just like we would have it if we actually got all this data from a Google Sheet, for example. So now it's time we actually start analyzing all of this data and gathering meaningful insights from it. So to do that, all we have to do is first of all come over here and add in an aggregate node. And the reason we have to do that is because, as you can see over here, we have 30 different items and we only want one item in order for us to then be able to give it to an AI model so it can generate only one response and not 30 different responses. That's why we have to use the aggregate node, and specifically we have to come over here and select all item data into a single list. And now if I come over here and execute the step, you guys will be able to see that right now we just have one simple item that includes all the data that we got from the extract file node. So now that we did that, it's time to actually feed all this information into a LLM model so we can gather some meaningful insights. To do that, you can obviously select any LLM model you want. I will personally choose to go with OpenAI, and I will specifically come over here and choose to message a model. And now the first thing that we need to do is to come over here and select our OpenAI credentials. Now if you do not have credentials, simply come over here and click on create new credential, and you need to input your API key in this box over here. Now to find your API key, all you have to do is to go over to platform.openai/API keys, which I will leave a link for in the description below, and then simply come over here and click on create new secret key. Now you simply need to give it a name. I will call it Bob for this example, and then I will come over here and click on create secret key, and boom, this is our brand new API key. So all we have to do now is to simply come over here and copy it, and then we have to come back over to N8N and simply paste it in over here, and then come over here and click on save, and boom, as you can see, our credentials were successfully created, which means that we can actually come over here and select them. Then the resource will leave it on text, operation will leave it on message model. Then over here we need to select the model that we're going to use. I will personally choose to use GPT 4.1 mini. You can obviously choose any model that you want. The reason I'm going with this model is because it is a pretty fast model, and this is going to do the analysis very fast and also analyze it very well, since this is a more mathematical model. So now the next thing that we need to do is to input our prompt. So let me turn this into an expression and open this up so you guys can take a better look at it. And we need to come over here and say this prompt over here. This is a pretty long prompt, but do not worry, because this is going to be included in the free template that you can access inside my free school community. But I'm basically telling it that you're a highly skilled executive insights assistant. Your role is to analyze structured data, produce clear, impactful insights, and summarize suitable for senior leadership. Then I tell it what to focus on. Then I give it some instructions about what it should always do. Then I tell it what not to do. And then I specifically tell it to don't make this super long. Keep it within 2 to 3 paragraphs. And then what I said here is the data, and what I did over here was give it access to the array of data that we have over here. So I basically took this and drag and dropped it over here. But if I actually delete the previous thing that I have typed, you can see that if we just do that, the AI model cannot actually read the data and it just says object. So how we can circumvent that is by taking the schema over here, opening up the AI assistant, and simply tell it to stringify this, and then simply pasting your schema. And now it gives us this short snippet of code, which all we have to do is to simply come over here and copy, and then we can come over here, delete this thing, and then paste it in. And now you can see that the LLM model can actually take a look at all of this data, and that is because we stringify it. Since nodes in N8N are not able to read data that includes objects if it is not stringified. That's why it's super important to stringify it first. So now that we did that, we can finally close this off. And what I'm also going to do is I will come over here and give this model access to the think tool, which what a think tool does is it basically tells the LLM model, pause, take a moment, and anything of the response that it was going to give us, which indeed does make it give us a better end response. That's why I'm giving it access to this tool. And now we can finally come over here and execute this node. And as you can see, it just finished executing right now. And if we actually open this up, we can see that over here we have the full analysis that it created based on all of the data that we had inside the Google Sheet, which is pretty awesome. So now what we have to do is to also create some visual charts that we can also attach to the email, in order for us to be able to have a fully ready presentation that we can show to basically anyone. It can either be your boss, it can be your coworkers, it can be anyone that is interested in the insights that we have gathered. So to do that, we have to simply close this off, and then we need to come over here, click on the plus icon, and search for an LLM chain. And the reason we're using an LLM chain this time is because we're going to use an output parser, and you will see why in a bit. But for now, let's first start with the basics. The first thing that we need to do is to come over here in the source file prompt and change this from connect to chat trigger node to define below, which is going to open up the user message where we basically need to explain to the AI exactly what we wanted to do. So for this example, I will come over here and type take all of this data, and now what I will do is I will open up the aggregate node, and again I will take in this array, drag and drop it over here. Again we have the same issue, so what we basically have to do is to use the same exact snippet of code that we had from before. So let me delete this and paste this over here, and boom, as you can see now all the data is visible over here. And then I say take this data, analyze it, and give me 3 different prompts that I could use to create graphs for this data. They shouldn't have too much data, just a standard amount that a normal graph would have. And I'm specifically told it that because I tested this multiple times and I found that it generated massive graphs with a bunch of data that weren't actually readable, if I'm gonna be honest. That's why I gave it this instruction over here. And then I said include the numbers that would be shown in the prompts, so then I can give it to an AI image generation model and have it generated for me. And now what we need to do is to obviously come over here and add in our LLM model. So for this example, I will again choose to go with OpenAI, and I will leave the model on GPT 4.1 mini. And now we need to open this up again because we need to come over here and enable the required specific output format, because what this does is it opens up this brand new option over here which is called an output parser. And now out of these 3 output parsers, the one that we're going to select is going to be the structure output parser, because what this does is it basically tells to the AI model exactly how we want it to output data. And we're doing that because we need the data formatted in a certain way in order for us to be able to use it later on. And this is the part where everyone starts losing their mind, because they see this short snippet of code and are like, oh my god, Damian, I don't know how to code, this is super technical. But do not worry guys, you will not have to write any code yourself. All you have to do is to simply come over here and delete the short snippet of code and type in this short snippet of code. Now if you're wondering how I came up with this, I basically went over to ChatGPT, I told it exactly what I want my data to look like, and it gave me this snippet of code, which I just copied and pasted. And what you can do is take a screenshot of this, give it over to ChatGPT, and it's going to give you the text, or just join the free school community and download the full template, which is obviously going to include this snippet of code. So now that we did that, we can finally close this off and actually execute our basic LLM chain over here. And boom, it just finished executing. And if I open this up, we can see that we do have 3 different prompts over here, very nicely structured, exactly as we wanted. And now it is time that we actually go and give these prompts into an AI image generation model so it can go and generate us the charts that we want. So to do that, we have to come over here, search for OpenAI, and then come over here and select generate an image. Over here, the resource will leave this on image, operation generate on image. On the model, make sure you actually change this to GPT image 1, since that is the best model for generating charts. And then over here, we basically need to tell the model exactly what we want it to do. So let me turn this into an expression and open this up, and I will come over here and say generate engaging charts with this information. And then I say they should look professional and the user should be able to use it in a company presentation. As you can see, very short prompt. But now over here what we need to do is to basically give it access to all 3 of the prompts. But we have a problem here, because if we give it access by stringifying this object, then this node is only going to generate us 1 chart when we actually needed to create 3 different charts. So how we can circumvent that is by first of all deleting this, closing this off, and in between these 2 nodes coming over here and adding a split out node, because what the split out node is going to do is it is going to take in this object that we have over here, which we need to drag and drop over here, and then if we execute the step, it is going to input all of these different prompts, which includes 3 items this time, which means that right now if we feed this to the generate an image node, this is going to run 3 separate times and generate us 3 separate charts. So that is exactly what we need to do. So let me open this up, and now all we have to do is to simply take the output over here and drag and drop it over here. And now we're basically done configuring this node, and it's time we go and we execute this. So let me come over here and click on execute step, and all we have to do is to wait a little bit till it generates us all 3 of our charts. And boom, our node just finished generating all of the images, which if we actually open up, we are able to take a look at from over here. So let's click on view, and we can see 1 chart over here. Let's take a look at the other chart as well. Boom, you can see we have this very nice chart over here as well. And let's take a look at the 3rd chart as well. You can see that this also gives us some pretty decent data about our business. And you can see how all of these charts are not in the same topic, they are all completely different from one another, and that is because we prompted it that way. So now what we have to do is to send all of these 3 graphs over to the person that we want to receive them via email. But while this might seem like a simple task, it is actually not that simple because we need to make some slight tweaks in order for us to be able to achieve that. And the first tweak that we need to make is that we need to go and upload all of these 3 charts in our Google Drive. So come over here, search for Google Drive, and then come over here and select upload a file. And the reason we have to upload them over in our Google Drive is because we cannot actually send all 3 of them in the same email, since they are in a form of a binary file right now, which means that we can only send one of them as they are. So how we need to configure this is, first of all, you need to come over here and select the Google Drive credentials. Now if you do not have credentials, you will need to go and create them. There are multiple videos on YouTube showing you how to do exactly that, so I will not cover this in this video. Then operation, leave this on upload. Input data field name, make sure it matches the name of our files, which is data. And then over here in the file name, we can give this any name that we want. Let's say files, for example. Then come over here and select your drive and also any specific folder that you want to upload these files to. And now if we come over here and we execute the step, you can see that all of these 3 files were successfully uploaded over to our Google Drive. And we can actually see them from the web view URL over here. So now we successfully have uploaded all these files, but they're not going to be able to be visible from anyone else, simply because all of these files are set on private. So what we need to do is to actually set them so anyone can view them. And we can do that by coming over here, searching again for a Google Drive, but this time we need to come over here and select the set a file section. Again, make sure you select your Google Drive credentials, then on resource leave this on file, operation leave this on share, and then you need to come over here, change this to by ID, since we have all of our files ID over here, and then take in the schema and drag and drop it over here. And now what we need to do is to add in some permissions. So come over here, click on add permission, then select role and select reader, and then over here in the type we want to select anyone with a link. So now if we actually come over here and we execute the step, our files are going to be set so anyone with a link can actually view them, which is exactly what we wanted. But right now we cannot actually come over here and send the Gmail immediately, and that is because we don't want to have to send 3 different items over here. We only want to send 1 item, since we want to send only 1 email and not 3 different ones. So this might seem a little confusing to understand, but bear with me, because I think if you understand this, you will really understand how data is being transformed within N8N. Because if I come over here and add in an aggregate node to make this only 1 item, and I come over here and select all item data into a single list, and I simply execute this, you guys can see that we do in fact have only 1 item, but we have successfully aggregated only the setter file Google Drive node and not the upload file, which includes the URLs that we actually wanted, which means that we shouldn't aggregate the setter file over here and we should aggregate the uploader file node, which means that we're going to have to break this and actually connect it with the uploader file node over here. But now we have 2 different branches, which is not what we want. So what we need to do is to obviously merge these 2 branches together. That's why we're going to use the merge node. And right now we will leave them all on append and the number of inputs to 2, since we only have 2 inputs over here. And then we simply need to take the aggregate node and connect it over here in the merge node. So now if we execute the merge node, you can see that right now we have 4 items. And you might be, Damian, we had 3 items before, now we have 4. This is not helping. Well, it actually is, because if I open up the merge node, we have all the data that we actually need inside here. Because as you can see, this includes the web content links that we actually need to send over in the email. So now the final thing that we need to do is to simply come over here and aggregate this one last time. Because if we come over here and we select all item data into a single list and then we click on execute, this is going to aggregate everything. We will only have 1 item, but this time we will also have access to all the web URLs that include the charts that we just generated. So I think you can see why this might be a little confusing at first, but if you actually try to build this by yourself, I think you can really understand a lot about how data flows inside N8N. And now all that is left is to simply come over here and search for the Gmail node, then simply come over here and select send a message, and all we have to do is to simply come over here, select the Gmail credentials, resource will leave this on message, operation will leave this on send. On the 2, we need to input the email that we want to send this message to. So I will come over here and input my own email for this example. But if you want to send it to someone else, obviously you need to input their email over here. Then for the subject, you can type in whatever you want. Let me type in, for example, weekly report. Then I will change this to text. And then for the message, we can say something like, here is the weekly analysis. And then what we need to do is to close the aggregate node for now, open up our LLM model, which is OpenAI, to where we have our weekly analysis, and taking the schema, drag and drop it over here. So now as you can see, the LLM model has access to that, and then we can say, and here are the charts. And then what we need to do is to open up our aggregate node over here and simply come over here, take the web content URL, drag and drop it over here, which is going to be for the first graph. Then we simply need to close this and do exactly the same for the second graph as well. Close this and do the exact same for the third graph as well. Now we're basically done with our email. Obviously you can write any copy that you might want. I'm just doing this as an example just to show you how this actually works. And I will simply come, close this off, and I will also come over here, click on add option, click on append N8N attribution, and I will make sure to turn this off, since you don't want this annoying message that says, oh, this email was sent by N8N in your emails, because it looks very unprofessional. And now it's time we actually come over here and we execute the step. And boom, as you can see, this email was successfully sent. And if I come over in my Gmail, I can see the full email over here. We can see the weekly analysis that we just did based on the data of our CSV. And also over here, we can see the 3 different charts that we just managed to generate, and all that completely on autopilot, simply by uploading a CSV file over here in our Lovable interface. So just as I promised at the start of the video, you can find the JSON for this full automation inside my free school community, for which I have left a link for in the description below. And if you want to take this a step even further and learn how you can sell automations and finally start making some real money, you can click the link in my description and come and check out my paid school community, in which I have a bunch of courses showing you how to do exactly that. Specifically, I show you how to do it with Upwork, with cold email, and by building an audience on YouTube and on Instagram and selling your automations to them. And just as an example, I recently sold a $10,000 automation from an inbound client that I got from my YouTube channel. So you can see how doing methods like this has massive upside and can make you thousands of dollars. Plus, you will also get access to my 100-day roadmap, in which I show you what actions you need to take every single day in order for you to land your first paying AI and automation customers. And if you don't manage to do that within these 100 days and you actually follow the roadmap, I will give you all of your money back guarantee. And I'm doing that because I'm dead certain that if you actually follow this roadmap, it's almost impossible not to land your first paying customer. Plus, you will also get access to all the exclusive N8N builds that I have solely inside my school community, and also access to the Build a $1 Million SaaS series, in which I document the process of me building my own AI SaaS exclusively again inside the community. So if you want access to all of this content, along with access to a community of 140 members that are interested in AI and most importantly making money with it, make sure you click the link in the description and you come and check out the AI SaaS Builders community, and I will be waiting for you there. But also YouTube thinks you're going to enjoy this video, in which I built a $1 million app using just Lovable N8N. So make sure you go and watch that next, and I will see you over there.